All right, everybody, I think we'll get started and, hopefully other people will join us as we go along. I'd like to call the hour being after 6 o'clock. I'd like to call the Tuesday, January 18th, 2022 Walpole School Building Committee meeting to order. If I could first read this acknowledgement of public participation. Due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic and state of emergency, on March 12, 2020, Governor Baker issued an executive order temporarily suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. Pursuant to the order, public bodies are temporarily relieved from the open meeting law's requirement that meetings be held in public places, open and physically accessible to the public, so long as measures are taken to ensure public access to the body's deliberations through adequate alternative means. Citizens with a question or comment can email mwortali@walpole.k12.ma.us or middleschoolproject@walpole.k12.ma.us. On June 16th, 2021, Governor Baker signed into law an act extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency. This act includes an extension until April 1st of 2022 of the remote meeting provisions of its March 12, 2020 executive order, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. Thank you, everybody, for listening to that. Our next order of business is approval of meeting minutes from December 14th, 2021. Hopefully people have had a moment to be able to look those over. And if you want, I'll take a motion to
approve the minutes.
Second.
Mark, you're on mute. Mark, you're on mute.
Was I on mute the whole time that I was reading the
No, just after the motion.
Oh, okay. Oh, I must have been a stray finger or something. Jack Fisher, what's your vote on the meeting minutes? Take that as a yes. Nancy Gallivan.
Yes.
Dr. Goff.
Yes.
Mr. Fisher.
Yes.
Ms. Hamilton.
Yes.
Mr. Jeffrey Fisher.
Yes.
Ms. Gaositz.
Yes.
Mr. Connor.
Yes.
Mr. Barrett.
Yes.
And I vote yes. Did I miss anybody? All right, let's continue. I'll turn it over to Brian Jarvis with Compass for the next several items on the agenda, and then we'll move on to TAP A for item number 7.
Patrick, can you enable me as a host? I'm not enabled.
Yeah, should be all set now, Brian.
I went through the agenda quickly. We approved the minutes. Just a quick update on the MSBA, quick update on the CM at risk process. We have the vendor invoice package for the month ending December, and then we'll turn it over to TAP A for some updates regarding the design process to date, and then wrap up with just kind of going over their work plan and upcoming meetings of what to expect in February and moving forward. Quickly, brief update administratively. The project funding agreement, everything was approved back at the end of last year. We did get the project funding agreement executed at the beginning of December, so that's moving in, being entered into ProPay. We'll see that in a minute. This is a timeline that was updated, consistent with what we've been seeing through design. This is now on the project's website. So basically moving through design development in the blue shaded area. The goal is to have that submitted into the MSBA by the first week of April. Wrap up construction, the selection of the construction manager early April as well. We'll talk through that timeline in a little bit more detail. Moving through design, we'll do a 6% construction document set as we move closer to the summer. We also have to talk about enabling work, get an early release package out for that East Street driveway. We'll be talking about that in more detail in the upcoming meetings, with the goal of wrapping up construction documents towards the beginning of the fall, and then having bid packages out in the fall of this year to start full construction by December of this year. We'll start the get more detail around potential other early packages such as foundations this fall, if we get the road done, and then start clearing and potentially moving towards foundations, but we're putting some more detail around that. We're going to meet with TAP A in the next couple of weeks to vet that out a little bit better, and we'll come back with some more detail. We're also targeting some additional potential dates of community forums to provide an update to the public. We'll work through this with the working group and come up with some dates, but right now we're targeting towards the end of DD, where we'll actually have an updated cost estimate. We'll have updated renderings. They'll actually have a lot of stuff to look at. And as we move through design, basically the milestones with the MSBA getting out in front of the public. The one in the springtime, early summer will also be related to any type of early packages we do. We want to get out in front of the public to get people up to speed and aware that work could be starting. Same thing in the fall as we transition back to the new school year with the construction site in progress, as well as the design of the overall building. And then obviously when we kick off full construction towards the end of this year, just getting the community up to speed on where things are at. And we'll continue to refine this and add more detail to it. We'll have an updated overall project schedule as part of the DD submission at the end of March. So we'll have a lot of details filled in around all these other dates. And we're also working through a more detailed schedule regarding the selection of the construction manager once we hear back from the Inspector General's office. So as earlier, we talked through the scope and budget and the PFA. As far as CM at risk process goes, we should hear back from the IG's office any day now. We did get an update from them last week that they didn't have any major questions. So we're anticipating receiving that. We'd like to get out on the street with the request for qualifications as soon as possible this month. We sent a draft of that request of qualifications out to the committee over the weekend for folks to take a look at, see if they have any questions or comments. And we'll be finalizing that and getting ads in place. We're gonna have a kickoff meeting with that committee in the next couple of weeks, and then we'll be off and running. We would anticipate getting the SOQs back at some point in February, hopefully getting down to 3 or more CM at risk firms on a short list, request proposals from them, which will be a more in-depth qualifications regarding their staffing, their proposed fee for the scopes of work that we're asking them for, and then get to a point where we can do interviews in March, and then hopefully have someone selected by the end of March, beginning of April, and execute a contract at that time. Any questions on general schedule updates before we get to budgets?
I have a quick question, Brian.
Yep.
Yeah, this is Ben. You said the RFQ is drafted. Is that something that the larger committee is going to be able to take a look at? I know that we have a focused subcommittee that's going to be guiding that and giving input, but is that something that we'll all get a copy of?
Yeah, that should have went out. I thought that went out Saturday to the full committee. I could be wrong. I'll double check that and get that off to you. It is fairly straightforward. It's a template we've used on past several projects, obviously tweaking it for some of the details of Walpole, but if you didn't receive a copy of that, we'll get that to you this evening.
Cool. Thank you.
Brian, I have a question too. It's Nancy.
Yep.
I'm guessing that this is something that'll come like in April or in a couple of months, but as you know, the sports teams use the fields. So like just if there's any impact to the teams in this front, I guess it would be the summertime would be the soonest it would be. Just we need to sort of be able to alert people about that.
Yeah, I agree. So part of the kind of the detailing around what we think the impacts could be. And obviously, once we get to see them on board and work through some of the logistics, getting meetings with all of the sports organizations as far as what that impact might look like. So they're aware of how they need to lay out fields. The fields should still be usable through the summer, and the goal is that they'll be usable throughout construction. It's just a matter of making sure, when they stripe them, et cetera, that we have them oriented in a way that everything works out. So that's definitely part of the conversation.
Thanks.
Brian, this is Jack. Quick
Jack.
one. How many requests for interest do you expect to send out, and how many do you expect to get back? Any ballpark numbers?
My guess is we'll probably see about 10 to 12 firms interested in this project. So I would expect that 10 to 12 will probably pull the request for qualifications, and we'll probably see closer to 10 responses back is my guess, based on some of our past projects.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? All right, I'll share that. So the vendor invoice package and the budget as of the end of December. Just 2 invoices still. We had Compass's invoice for December and TAP A's, which is their first invoice towards design development, totaling $239,801 and 25 cents. That gets put in. The big update here on the overall budget is that the approved budget, so the MSBA's project funding agreement budget, which is what was approved by town meeting, is now entered into this budget status report. So you will see this budget basically from now to the end of the project. The only adjustments that we'll make is when we actually finalize the construction contract numbers. And we'll update the construction line items of this budget accordingly, which I think is on page 2 of this slide. But this full budget is now in your vendor invoice package that you'll receive monthly. So here we have the current construction estimated cost. This will get updated as we finalize all those numbers. And then we'll continue to track against this budget every month. Any budget revisions, et cetera, will kind of work the same way that we've been doing through the early stages of design, but obviously now in much more detail. We have entered in the commitments to date based on the designer and the OPM contracts. So those are in the budget as well as far as committed. And then the recommended, just like we've been doing, any invoices recommended for payment this particular period show up in the recommended column highlighted in green. And we'll continue to track this all the way through the project. Any questions on the invoices? We just need a vote to approve.
Yeah, we need a vote to approve that, folks. Do we have a motion to approve the vendor invoice package for December?
I'll move to,
moved.
All right, a motion for Mr. Fisher. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a second. Let me poll the committee. Mr. Johnson?
I'm not a voting member.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jim. Mr. Frischup?
Yes.
Mr. Barrett?
Yes.
Ms. Hamilton?
Yes.
Ms. Gallivan?
Yes,
Ms. Gaositz?
Yes.
Dr. Goff?
Yes.
Mr. Jeffrey Fisher? Mr. Jack Fisher?
yes,
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Did I miss anybody?
Don
All right.
Anderson?
Oh, Mr. Anderson, your vote.
Yes.
Very good. It is a vote. All right, back to you, Brian.
Great. Thank you. And then the last update from the MSBA through the end of design, schematic design, as far as reimbursement goes, on target for the feasibility and schematic design. So we'll update this reimbursement chart now with the full project budget, and we'll continue to track that all the way through the end of the project. So in good shape there. That was also in your packet. And any other questions related to the MSBA before I turn it over to TAP A? Okay. So we have Chris and Matt from TAP A.
Thank you, Brian.
Yep.
So I'll walk you guys through the presentation tonight. So we've had a bunch of programming and coordination meetings, both in-house and with the school in town. We had a senior district leadership meeting a few weeks ago where we discussed the special education classrooms. We kind of made a few revisions based on the previous meetings that we had. On the first and second floors, let me zoom out, there we go. They decided to add a connecting door to connect the 2 SPED classrooms so there can be more production in between the classrooms and help if needed. So we added a door on the first and second floor, and then the third floor remains the same right now with no connecting door. We end up shifting a few items around to get that to fit. We moved the teacher wardrobes up to this wall and eliminated some of the casework and cabinetry along here in order to get the door into that space. We also had, we talked about the tech classrooms. So we had a general meeting regarding that, and the first floor tech classroom was the big item of discussion. And the decision there was to keep this a more flexible space instead of having it dedicated for TV production or studio space. So we're going to have more follow-up meetings with the technology department to get more programming for that space. But we pulled all of the TV production studio space out of that, and it's going to be moving to the media center. So the media center will be having an enlarged classroom, which will also serve as a studio space. It'll be designed primarily as a classroom since the studio space will only get used a few times a day. So there'll be a storage closet in that space where they can move the TV equipment into. And then when it's not being used, everything gets pushed into that closet. When it is being used, it gets pulled out. And that way we have a room that's not just dedicated for TV production that's not getting used all day. It's a flexible space that can be used for multiple programs throughout the school learning environments. Then we went over room numbering. We have a preliminary layout based on what we had shown to the school. We basically start at the south end of the building and work our way north. First floor will be all 100s, second floor will be 200s, and the third floor will be the 300s. We have that laid out in the plans, and we'll be reviewing that with the fire department to see if they have any comments or changes they'd like us to make. Moving on, we had another meeting regarding the auditorium and stage. We met with Jim DiTilli, Tom Reeve, Mike Frischka, and also Tamara Green from Walpole TV. We had Alex Bagnell, who's our theater consultant from Cavanatachi. He went through and reviewed the floor plans and the layouts, sound, projection, lighting, controls, rigging, and Jim was very happy. He had a bunch of questions and comments before we went into the meeting, and after the meeting, he was very pleased. We picked up all of his previous questions and concerns from the high school. So we'll be making those updates, and Alex is putting together a package and updating his drawings now based on our meeting last week. Any questions here before I move on from auditorium and stage?
Just one little question.
Sure.
When we were in Natick, they were talking about the fact that they wish that they had built storage under the second tier of seats.
Yep.
Do you have that?
We're looking at it, but it's good. If we do it, it's going to be very limited just because of how the height is available there. And it's also going to be added cost and square footage. So we kind of have to take that into account. So it was brought up, we're looking at it, but we don't know if it'll actually be added into the set yet.
Yeah, I don't have a strong opinion. I just know that now's the time to bring it up.
Yep, we have it in our notes and we're looking at it, but right now the head height is very tight in there. So we have to figure out if we can get it to work and meet the code.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Matt, I have a quick question as well.
Sure.
What was the company that Alex Bagnell works with, the theater consultant on the project?
Cavanatachi.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I also have a follow-up question based upon our tour of Natick. Another thing that they pointed out was that some of their storage spaces were up high, so that they had to get a crane to get equipment, and it just, didn't seem like a good storage solution. So, to the extent you guys are doing any solutions that involve moving things to high locations, they were having problems with accessing their equipment, basically.
Okay. As of right now, we have no real storage up high. There's going to be a catwalk for lighting and stuff like that for the rigging, but no real storage will be up, above the regular floor level.
Okay.
Thank you.
A quick question as well.
Sure.
Just talking to middle school teachers, the evacuation, is it mainly one way for entrance and exits?
Now we've got multiple egresses in and out. So you can see down here, you can see my mouse, right? So we've got one vestibule and entry here. So there's a way out there. There's another entryway and exit right here, which has an immediate exit to the exterior. So you're not even going through the building. There's another door off of the edge of the auditorium, edge of the stage right here. And then we've also got a set of doors off of the stage here and off the back of the stage here.
Okay, thank you.
And then there's one more on the second floor. There's a second on the second floor. You can come in and exit right here as well.
It was just a discussion with middle school teachers when they practice the lockdown or in threats. And he said often in these new schools, the exits kind of lead to the same location. I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay, I'll move on. We then had another meeting with food service with Mike and Maria Hall. Our food consultant, John Souza from Crabtree McGrath was there. We walked them through the floor plans. We talked about access for deliveries, the kitchen layout, equipment, dishwashing, the queuing that we're proposing and the issues that they're currently having. So we're going to have some changes to the floor plans. We actually just got updated floor plan yesterday from John. So we'll be updating the plans and reporting that with our consultants. But the major change that they wanted, they brought up the issue that they need to have public access to the manager's office. And the current plan did not have that without having people go all the way through the building. So we're going to shift the office around basically where this door is at now. We're going to have a door with a vestibule into there. We'll have a new, basically shift the office up, and it needs to be larger for 2 people or 2 separate offices. And that will allow them to have people come into the building, pay the bills, and not have to go through the front entrance or bother anybody inside the building. They can get buzzed in at that door, come directly into that vestibule, and then come into that office space and not disturb anything that's going on within the class or the school itself. The other office that we had back here for this food service, they said that one could be much smaller. So we're basically going to take the space from that and give it to the manager's office. And we also discussed some screening concerns about coming down from East Street. We're going to try to provide as much screening as possible. So when you're coming in and coming into that loop, that you're not seeing into the loading dock as much as possible. We also had our systems meeting with Don. We went through kind of a brief overview of all the systems in the building and a couple of the architectural components. We have the meeting minutes. If anyone wants to look at those, they are available for anybody to look at. But here's a quick overview of kind of what was discussed. We looked at the fire protection system in the building, and we're going to be providing a dry sprinkler head system with use of nitrogen so that it meets the other town standards that are currently being retrofitted and upgraded. We also discussed the electrical rooms and how there'll be no sprinkler protection in those spaces. It'll be primarily a smoke detector instead, and that'll be reviewed and approved by the Walpole Fire Department. As far as plumbing, we went through the janitor closets locations with Donnie and how they'll all have floor drains and the locations on each floor. He was okay with the locations that we had provided in both parts A, B, and C and D of the building on all the floors. He asked us to add a hand wash sink in the custodial shop. We discussed the hose bib locations on the roof and also all the way around the building. He requested to keep them away from the front facade at the main entry, which we will do. We looked at the floor drains. We're not only providing them at the gang toilets per code, but we're going to add them to the single-use all gender toilet rooms. That way, if anyone is in there and the door is locked and decides to flood the toilet or the sink, we've got the drains in there as backup to help resolve any issues there. There'll be no drains in the single staff toilet user rooms. We had a discussion that we need to confirm the chemicals that are being used in the science classrooms. And Don also requested if we can review the showers that we currently have in all the science classrooms. If they are not required, his preference would be to eliminate them in the spaces where we don't have to have them. We discussed having another flow test prior to construction to make sure our previous tests were still accurate. And we had to confirm with the water department if a cross connection plan is required. On the mechanical, we reviewed the VRF and heat pump systems. We talked about how each classroom will have 2 cassettes located in the ACT ceilings. We reviewed the locations on the rooftops for the equipment. Don requested if we do not need the equipment screens that we're currently showing on the roof for acoustical purposes, that his preference would be to eliminate them and prevent further maintenance on them. And we also discussed adding an extended warranty to the spec. We'll have a 5-year extended warranty for equipment and an additional 2 years instead of the typical 1 year for labor and warranty. On to electrical. The building, we discussed how it'll be solar ready. It'll have conduit to the roof, and we'll also be including space for inverters and anything else that we need into the mechanical and electrical spaces. All the receptacles will be tamper resistant with no USB. We are talking with Bill and Bridget to confirm to make sure that that is acceptable. We discussed how the lighting will all be LED and we'll have 100,000 hour and 10-year warranty on all the lighting. And we revised the elevator to be traction type in lieu of holeless hydraulic, which will help save on providing a oil separator for the elevator. We're also in discussion regarding the generator and the generator size. Currently on the size of the elevator at 1.5, there's a for located in regards to how close can be to the building, how large the stack has to be, air quality control per mass DEP, and the sound that comes off of it. And the generator, we decided will be diesel in lieu of having it as natural gas, since we have no other natural gas coming to the building. Finally, we discussed some of the doors. Donnie's preference was to have all of the exterior doors to be FRP in lieu of hollow metal, as far as maintenance purposes, anywhere where they're not located within curtain wall or storefront. And his other preference was for anywhere we have double doors to have removable center mullion with no vertical rods for hardware. Again, these are all for maintenance reasons.
Excuse me, Matt.
Yes,
Christian, would you go back to that page?
sure.
A couple things. On the roof screens, is the roof screens primarily for acoustic or for appearance?
It's both. We have our acoustical consultant. Once we get the final specs and basis of design for the equipment up there, they will run their analysis and they'll tell us if we need that. So if we don't need that for acoustical reasons, we'll likely remove them.
All right, because you're coming down the hill from East Street and you're gonna be at the height of the roof. From an appearance perspective, it may be something to consider carefully, okay? The
Yeah,
other
we
thing I
can
wanted to ask- Go ahead.
We'll take a look at them. We typically do renderings from, as we're coming down the entry sequence. So we'll take a look at that and see how it looks as we come into the building and see if we need to keep any of them for appearance reasons.
All right, the other question was, you said there's no natural gas into the building. What are you doing for science labs?
There is no gas. If they need gas, they'll have the individual tanks. Since the building is following lead, we've got no gas coming into the building for kitchen equipment or anything else.
Okay, I guess I just remember back when they had Bunsen burners with natural gas.
A lot of times now, if they do need them, there's portable options where they can bring it in so that we don't have to provide the infrastructure and pay for it just to pipe it in for the science spaces.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
One more quick question, Matt. In regards to the receptacles without USBs, and I know you have a note there that you're going to confirm that with the school, but are you guys often designing these buildings or any building without USBs? I mean, it seems like something that's pretty prevalent these days.
A
Is
lot
that
of
a
the
cost
times,
saving measure?
it is more expensive to provide the USBs, and a lot of times it's a school decision. A lot of schools that we have so far, we have not included the USBs just because of the added cost and maintenance that sometimes comes with it. But it really varies from school to school on if they want them or if they prefer not to have them.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Matt, I have two questions also. This is Nancy.
Hi, Nancy.
I'm assuming that you've built this in, but we get questions about the ventilation system and what we've learned because of COVID. Is it the highest level of ventilation, or just tell us a little bit about what kind of system is going in?
It will have all the filtering. I know it'll have the minimum of MERV 13, which I believe is the standard for the COVID. So that is all in there. It usually consists of more than one filter. I believe there's two filters in most of the systems. So yes, it meets all the filtering requirements and everything else that everyone's been doing for COVID restrictions.
Nancy, this is Chris from
Yes.
Tepe. Just to back up what Matt was just saying, I think we went over towards the end of SD, the system, and the way the system is designed is that those filters he's talking about are really primarily for the incoming air. And then the air going out is it is exactly 100% exhaust air. It's not recirculation. And that's because of the VRF system that you're using. So it's already a better system better system response to COVID than what you're used to in these old buildings. Then it has the filtration where it's needed. So.
Okay, so you're saying 100% of the air is exhausted out?
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, my other question is back to the cafeteria. Have you built in the capability to be able to recycle, compost, and trash both? Like, do we have the facilities inside the building, but also outside the building in order to do those things well?
Yeah, we typically have a trash and recycling center. I'm not sure if we've been informed to carry compost at this point, but we can definitely add that if it's a requirement.
I'd like to at least have it, I would like to have it discussed, yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, moving on to tasks and other scheduling items. Our geotech engineer was out doing the borings and test pits last week. They were supposed to finish that up at the end of last week. We also have the survey coming up. They should be on site on the 20th, as long as the weather is cooperative, and they should be out there a couple days running the updated survey to get our existing condition survey and grading and all the other updates that we need confirmed with the ongoing construction on the roads, and make sure that we have an up-to-date and current existing conditions plan. Finishes and exterior materials presentation. So we're working on those currently. The schedule currently, we have a meeting with the working group on the 27th, where we'll be presenting the design intent. We'll have colored floor plans as a diagram showing the flooring materials and locations throughout the building. We'll also have interior elevations and exterior elevations, and we'll basically go through and present kind of, what we currently have in the documents for the floors, for the walls. We can talk about ceilings to just kind of give a real general overview and make sure everyone is on board with that. We'll give basically that same presentation to you guys for the building committee on 2/1 with any updates that come from the working group. On 2/3, we'll have another working group meeting to present kind of the final DD presentations. We'll have more finished, and we'll have interior elevations and with the exterior materials in the renderings of the major interior spaces and also the exteriors. And we'll have images of the actual colors and finishes that we're looking to use within the building. We'll then take any other comments that we have from that meeting and present it to you guys on 2/15. And we'll basically give the same presentation that we gave to the working group with any updates. And after that meeting, if you guys are all set with what we provided, we'll look for approval on that. We wanted to discuss the working groups and subcommittees. I know that Brian passed along a few names of people who are interested. So our thoughts on that is we have working group meetings. There's a small group, I think there's about 5 or 6 who are interested in doing the interiors and exteriors. I know Jack was interested in being involved in the MEP and infrastructure. And then I think Nancy was also interested in doing some of the educational equipment. So for the interiors and exteriors meeting, we've got a working group meeting on the 27th, which we see above, and also the other working group meeting on the 3rd. Those are at 2:30. So we can invite you guys to participate in that meeting. So that way you've got more chances to be involved and express your feelings of what you like and what you don't like and so forth. So if you guys are interested in doing that, we can pass along the invitation for that. And as far as Jack, we've got some upcoming meetings that we're scheduling for technology, so we can involve Jack on that. And then also with any of our coordination meetings that we have with our consultants, so he can voice any of his questions or concerns within those meetings. Do we want to talk any further regarding the working groups and subcommittees? Does anyone have any questions or comments on that?
If I could add, Matt, to the committee, please feel free to volunteer or step up, and if you want to take a part in any of these subcommittees. We've only had about 6 people chime in.
Mark, I'd be interested in helping on the finishes.
Interior finishes, Jen, or exterior?
I don't,
Both.
I guess probably, yeah, both.
Okay.
After
All right.
touring a lot of the schools, I've heard some stuff that works and some stuff that doesn't, and you just look at it and you think, why? So yeah, I'll help with both.
All right.
Yeah, so
thanks.
the goal here is just to get a few members of the committee involved in the working groups, just to kind of understand the detailed aspects to some of these discussions. And then when we roll them up to a larger presentation to this committee, that folks, also help explain the thought process and the design intent. So it's just not everyone seeing it kind of cold the night that we present this. So any input we get during the process will be helpful. So Jen, we'll add you to that group. And we'll get the invites out to these meetings to the folks that would like to attend and go from there.
Thank you, Brian. Moving on to the 3-week look ahead. So we're on the week of the 17th. Like I said, we've got the survey happening on the 20th. We also have a meeting on Thursday the 20th with the first responders. We'll have police, fire department, planning, Department of Public Works, and we're going to basically go through the site plans. We're going to discuss the floor plans. We'll be going over connections for sanitary, and we're basically going to go through and review everything with all the different departments. We'll have our consultants there, and we'll go through everything and make sure that everyone's good with what we're planning on doing and connections and so forth, and look for approval that we're proceeding in the right direction and don't need to make any changes based on the current design progress that we're making. Moving on to the following week, the 24th through the 28th. We've got like I said earlier, we've got the working group meeting on the 27th. We moved it from the 20th to avoid the first responders meeting. And that will be where we're presenting the first design intent for the interiors and exteriors. We also have a 50% DD check set that we're putting together from not only ourselves, but all of our consultants to make sure we're on pace to where we need to be to completing the DD estimate set. And everything else is kind of moving forward. We're setting up our own in-house sustainability meeting that same week to walk through the lead components for the building and where we're at. And then we're going to have another follow-up meeting with our consultants to make sure we've got all the points that we need to make sure we're on track for the 2% reimbursement. Moving on, basically everything else is kind of just continuing on with our detailing and coordination with our consultants onto the last week of January and the beginning of February. Sorry, this is not flipping. Here we go. We've got our building committee meeting on the 1st. Like we said, we'll be presenting the intent for both the interiors and exterior design at that point. We've got the meeting on the 3rd with the working group to kind of update anything that comes out of that Tuesday meeting. Hopefully there's nothing major there. As you can see, we've only got one working day in between to pick anything up. So depending on how the meeting goes with you guys, we'll have to look at what happens with that working group the following week. If there's any major changes, we may need to make a push to get that working group pushed back, or just present with what you guys have informed us with and tell them that we'll be making those changes. Again, that week we'll be continuing on with consultant coordination, detailing, working on the finishes, and getting the renderings together for that final package. Moving on to the 3rd week, February 7th through 11th. Again, we're basically continuing on, cranking away at getting the DD estimate set coordinated, detailed. And we also sent out a email to Bridget and Bill. We're trying to set up the IT tech meeting that week if everyone's available. So we're trying to figure out who needs to be involved in those meetings. That meeting will have our Doug Faria, who is our technology advisor and consultant. He'll basically walk you guys through the building. He will talk about the tech closets, the MDF rooms, the network switching, and basically all that infrastructure that goes into the building, and make sure it's coordinated with your own IT department. And it's also a meeting where technology within the classroom will be discussed. we'll start talking about how the school wants us to proceed, if it'll be a whiteboard with a projector, if it'll be a digital flat screen on a cart, if it's a digital flat screen that's mounted to the wall. So that'll be the start of the discussions on technology, just to make sure that we've got everything into the set and proceeding in the manner that the school wants, so we can include it in the DD estimate package. And that's it. I will turn it back over to Brian unless anyone has any questions.
I have a quick question, Matt. This is Ben. I know that
Hey,
you
Ben.
can only fit so much on these calendars, and there's a lot of detail here, so I appreciate that. You had mentioned mechanical, but I don't see any specific MEP meetings or deadlines or coordination. Is that just included here when you have a bullet that says coordination and detailing?
Yeah,
Or-
yeah. We
Okay.
have all of our all of internal meetings on there.
Okay,
Those are taking place. Like I said, we've had the meeting with Donnie to kind of go over the general system to make sure we were proceeding in a manner that, was acceptable to him. And, we'll continue to have them. If anything comes up, we can meet with Donnie and go over it. But for the most part, everything else that isn't on that schedule is internal. So you're not seeing all the internal stuff.
got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Brian.
That's basically it. All we wanted to discuss after that was just confirm the next meeting. So the next meeting of this group is right now scheduled for the 1st of February. We'll have the first look at kind of the interior, exterior finishes moving through February, as Matt explained, with a second meeting where we'll try to nail that down by the middle of February. We'll also have feedback back from the interdepartment meeting, which is also first responders. So a lot will come from that. Talk through some of those items, make sure we're on the right track there. We should also have an updated survey by early February and be able to confirm all of the site assumptions that we had made during SD and start to design some of those items in a little bit more detail. We're also going to do some kickoff meetings with the TAP-A group as far as logistics around the phasing and some of that scheduling for the enabling work this summer. So we'll start to put some detail around that, as I mentioned. So we'll have that update on the 1st, start to put that outline together and fine tune that by the second meeting in February. And that's all we have for an update. Any other general questions?
If we have no further questions,
I have one quick question. I'm just
Okay.
looking over the special education, and my question was, where in the building is this, my 3 points of elevator, stairs, and nursing? Being on the second and third floor, I'm assuming the second floor is still a flight up.
Correct. Yeah, so there's 2 elevators in the building. There's one right next to the admin wing, which is in part C. And there's another elevator right at the edge of in between part B and part C.
And so where are these 2 classrooms in relation to the elevators?
There's
Are
an
you able to share
elevator.
the floor plan? Do you have that
Let
handy?
me, hold on for a second. Let me see if I can bring up the floor plan.
The short answer, this is Chris from TAP-A. The short answer is those SPED classrooms are directly across the hall from the other elevator. But the nurse's office is down by the administration, which is a little bit further away from the SPED classrooms. But the SPED classrooms are right there and intermixed with all of the general classrooms, which is a strategy that the DESE wants to see us do.
Yeah, I'm just more concerned with evacuation. So, in the fire and such, just where they are, because those are for special education, access to the elevator, and when the elevator cannot be used in staircases. And then often the special education students visit the nurse once or twice a day, depending on their needs. So just kind of relations of where they are, since it's such a big building.
Matt, I have the floor plan open if you want me to put it up.
I got
Oh,
it.
you got it. Great.
Thanks, thank you, Chin. So we are on the second floor right now. So right here in the middle is basically the main entry lobby. So your main entry down here is on the first floor. This is your main stairway in the middle. So we've got an elevator right here. That's the one elevator. And then the other elevator is over here. So that's in part C. This one's in part B. And then the two self-contained sped classrooms are right here. So this is the same on all 3 floors. For the most part, those self-contained sped stack going all the way up with the elevator right there. And then we also have OTPT over here, which is directly adjacent to the second elevator.
What is the staircase for their emergency exits into?
Which one are you asking about?
That's all. My daughter went through the middle school in a wheelchair, and so
Yep.
part of the secondary evacuation working with the fire department was just physically getting her down a staircase. So was just wondering where they were to the closest stairwell.
So by the OTPT, there's one right here. And then we've got the other one in the center of the building here. And then when you go down to the classroom wings, there's a stairway at the end of each classroom wing. And
All
then
right,
over
thank
here.
you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments? If not, I would take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We have a motion from Ms. Gallivan. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Fisher. Let me poll the committee. Mike Frisha,
Yes.
Mr. Barrett,
Yes.
Ms. Hamilton,
Yes.
Ms. Gallivan,
Yes.
Ms. Gaositz,
Yes.
Dr. Goff,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yeah.
Mr. Jeffrey Fisher,
Yes.
Mr. Jack Fisher,
Yes.
Mr. Connor,
Yes.
and I vote yes. All right, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening now.
Thank you.
Thank you.